Alright, we're here at another day, and I'm happy to be back at it. I'm working on wrapping up the moonboard install. So I've got the lights in back. They're just not secured into the holes yet. And so what I did attempt to do is I attempted to use my magnet idea. The magnets that I ordered were not strong enough. Actually, I thought they were bigger, but what Amazon showed in the picture and what I actually got was two different things. So they were tiny little magnets. They weren't strong enough. It was super tedious to tape the magnets on there in the first place. So my friend Jack actually has built a moonboard before, and he used hot glue just to hold them in place. So just hot glue around it. So once I get access to hot glue gun and a bunch of sticks, then I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But they're all in place. They're all lined up where they need to be. So they just need to be hot glued in. What I'll be starting now is here it is behind the 20-degree wall right here. And I'm gonna be building out the structure here, making that into some shelving. And also it'll tie it into this sidewall. Then I'm gonna work on framing in this transition. And then I'm gonna work on framing up some up here to go a little bit higher on this 20-degree wall. So that's what we have remaining, so let's get to work. I'm going to now start framing in this section here. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm actually gonna take and run a furring strip. I'm gonna run a furring strip along here so that plywood can attach to it. And that'll go all the way up into this corner here as far as it'll go. And then I'll measure another one that's gonna go from that corner down to here. And then I'll come across here, and that will be one triangle. As long as you make them into triangles, flat plywood will work. If you make them into other rhombuses and other weird shapes, then there sometimes has to be a bend or a curve in the plywood, which I'm not trying to do here. Then once I'm done there, from here and here, I will do one triangle that goes down there. So then now that's two triangles, that's one triangle, and that's how we're gonna frame in the transition wall. All right, so there's triangle number one. And there we have it. So I'll have to get those three triangles figured out on plywood a little bit later, but that is not our priority right now. I found this awesome piece of plywood. It used to be a sign for Arvada Electric Supply Company, and I was hoping I would have a use for it. It's not thick enough to use for actual climbing surface because the T-nuts will poke right through. So I think I'm going to use this as the floor back there. So we'll see if it fits. Just a few cuts and it fits real nice. All right, here we go. So we're gonna start working up here. So I'm gonna be tying in from that part of the corner of the wall there up into that joist right there, and then making a little triangle that way. All right, so we got our triangle framed up there. So that's the piece I think I'm gonna start with for extra. And I decided I think I'm just gonna leave that open up there, but I put a finishing jug right there. And I just have to figure out some way to cover this plate so that people don't scratch themselves and stuff. We are finally to the tricky part. The tricky part is getting plywood that will fit these triangles. So I have to do a little bit of math and geometry and figure out my triangles and cut my plywood. I've got lots of spare plywood, and so it's just a matter of which pieces are gonna have the right space for it. So here's how we did the math. So this is my long end right here, and I marked it off at 5 feet, and that will end up being that edge right there. And then I got my other two measurements, and one of them is this measurement here. So I just did this circle here, semicircle, and then wherever my 4'9" line intersected that circle, is my third point. So that's how we're gonna figure out these triangles. And so I'm just literally gonna cut that out there. I think I only have to move one T-nut. And I think I want one up here anyway. So that's that one. And then I'm gonna measure the others and just cut them all at once. So next I'm gonna measure this triangle right here. I'm sorry I haven't been pressing record while I was cutting the plywood. I don't have a second cameraman, and that's what we got. But we've got two of the triangle pieces in here. And now I'm just trying to figure out this piece right here. It's a little bit of an odd shape. And so I'm gonna need a new sheet of plywood to start it. We just so happen to have another one right here. So that's what we're gonna go for. All right, so because of the weird shape here, I've actually got this gap, a little bit of a gap here. What I end up having to do is wedging this up in here, and then I went behind the wall and screwed it in to the side there. And I actually did that in my Minnesota wall, and it worked really well. So right now, I'm just gonna cover that gap with this piece of extra baseboard. So it'll just fit in here nicely. I've been working a while, and like I said, those triangles are pretty tricky. They're not perfect. I do have some gaps, but it's pretty clean. For the most part clean. Pretty happy with how this is turning out. Even that odd shape right there turned out all right. All right, so we got the lines laid up here for the last triangle. Had to figure out a nice way to do that here. So because of where we're gonna cut, we're gonna knock out a few T-nuts and we'll replace them back somewhere else. And then that triangle is gonna go up there. All right, so I've got that piece up now. The next section we're working on here is just a small little vertical section. And that is the Gavin wall. Gavin wanted a little wall of his own. We've got some extra plywood, so I'm gonna do a 4-foot section here. Potentially I'll put some triangulation pieces here down the road, not a #1 priority. So we're gonna throw up a piece of plywood here on this 4-foot wide section right here.
This is a Gavin board.
Alright, so I know that I keep saying I'm almost done, and I am almost done, but I'm just doing little fine-tuning pieces, including finding a spot for my ninja wall. And that ninja wall has been on every single climbing wall that I've built, for myself at least. And so I want to make sure I incorporate that. Originally I was thinking I would be able to put it up at the top of this vert here, but it doesn't fit. And then I was also thinking that maybe I could fit it in this transition here, but it didn't fit. And so now I finally think I found a spot that it will fit, and I think it'll actually work out even better and nicer. So ninja wall, I'm going to put it, follow with me here, I'm going to put it up here. So it'll be a nice little angle that will match with this triangle here, and just have some finishing holes that finish up there. And so I think that'll fit nice. And so that will be our incorporation there. In addition to that, another piece that I want to make sure to do is to install my campus board, my 5-rung campus board. And so that is going to go up here, and using a cantilever. Real World Climbing Headquarters 3 had the cantilever campus board as well, and so I'm going to reincorporate that there. The nice thing about putting it there is even when I have a car parked in here, then I'll still be able to do my campus workouts without having to move the car, and so that'll be nice. The last piece I'll have to do after all that is find a place for my hangboard. I do have a portable hangboard that I can just bring to my office at work and just hang up and do some hangboard workouts before work and things like that. So finding a spot here is a little bit less important as far as finding a spot for my old Nycros hangboard. And I may even consider putting it in the house, in my office in the house, just so that, again, in the winter months when I'm doing it, I can just be warm and things like that. I'm still debating. So let's get working on this, putting this up there. And so the way I'm actually going to attach this one, and again, I think I mentioned this a few times throughout the recording process of this wall build, is I had a general idea of where I wanted everything to go, but I didn't nitpick every single measurement. Planning ahead is a little bit harder to do because if you build one wall and you're, within inches or even fractions of an inch, you still have to make those adjustments on the next wall. So in this particular build, I felt like it was more beneficial to just build and measure as we go, have a general idea of where I want things to go, and if yes or no they will fit there. And then I've made adjustments as we've gone because I've had to. The benefit that I guess maybe I have and that I could maybe pass on to you guys is that I've built a lot of walls, I've designed a lot of walls, I know what works, what techniques work and things like that, and so what's possible. And so I was able to ad-lib and make decisions on the fly. What I'm actually going to do, that was a long way to say this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that up there and I'm just going to wedge it in between here because I do have this slight angle here. So I'm going to get it in over there and then wedge it up against the side of this triangle here, and then I'm going to screw in from the back, that first attachment point, and then I'm going to screw in across the bottom rail as well. And then I'm going to retro build the framework for what will be the right half of the Ninja wall. So again, this is just something that from experience and from trial and error I've figured out in the past. I actually did that here too on this bottom section of the transition. That bottom triangle is screwed in from the back as well. The other reason this is so crazy is because over the years, this sheet of plywood with the painting started off, 6 feet by 4 feet, and every iteration I've had to, cut this angle off and cut a little bit off here and there, and so this sheet is like kind of specific. We are now up above the wall here, so here's that upper triangle that we talked about, and so I'm just going to slide it in here and then hop back here and screw it in. So rather than trying to put it in place and then scoot back, I'm just going to bring it up here with me. It's just really awkward. Hard to do by myself. Alright, so I brought up with me the jigsaw because I discovered that I do need to cut out another little notch here, just to make it a little bit more specific. But cutting out this little notch here will allow me to slide it right into place. So I'm just going to jigsaw that real quick. And it doesn't have to be pretty either, so. Now let's see about getting this in place. This is going to fit very nicely. So, got it in place. It's pretty much holding itself up. Throw the first couple screws in from the back side, down this here, and then we'll go back around. So we're going to go flip back around, screw them in down the bottom of here, and then we'll come back in and add some structure back here. And it turns out I did actually box myself in because my ladder is like literally directly below this, so I have to go way out of bounds here. But luckily, I'll just show you a little behind the scenes here, is I just come out a little bit here, I'm at the storage shelf behind the 20 degree, so we should be fine. We're gonna exit out that way. Looks pretty good. It's decently solid already, so we're just gonna throw some framework behind there, and then that'll be good to go. One of the other fine touches that I've been doing is I put this little piece of spare triangular, this was just scrap stuff, and I just put that on there, and that's gonna be great for putting a couple holds on the arete there. And so what I've been doing for fine tuning is just sanding, using my hand sander, and I'm just gonna sand these aretes and these different sharp edges on there, as well as the new section that I just filled up there. So that's another little fine tuning piece that I think would help out your climbing walls as well. And then I've installed the 5-rung campus board here. Like I said, it's a cantilever system. So what I ended up doing is I secure this here, and that secures one point at the top of there, and then actually the weight hangs down on it as well. And then figured out the angle, and I angled mine at 15 degrees overhanging, and then screw it into this board here. So it's pretty solid. I'll try to give it a little bit of a demo. I'm not really warmed up, so I'm not gonna do too much crazy campusing, but I used this in the past and it worked out just fine. So let's see if we can get this on camera. So you can see there's really not much flex, especially when you're pulling. If I'm pushing into it, maybe there's a little bit of flex, but if I'm pulling down on it, I don't know if you can even tell if it's moving at all. Having it there does cut into my vert wall here a little bit, but the vert wall was just totally non-necessary. I just didn't really want to store this full sheet of plywood somewhere. So really this is mainly here for storage. Just that I didn't want to put it somewhere, and might as well, it was already T-nutted. So I think basically for now I'm finished. I'm going to do maybe some fine tuning, and what I mean by that is the only remaining pieces I might think about doing is finding a piece of plywood that would fit up here. Again, just to make the vertical wall a little bit higher, but not super important to me. And then finding a place for my hangboard. So that is the build out of Real World Climbing Headquarters Part 5. And I know this has most likely been multiple episodes, so thanks for sticking with me on it. And it'd be great if you would subscribe, because I'm sure you'll be interested in some of the future videos, which would involve route setting on this wall and climbing on this wall. The moon board will be pretty sweet to get some moon routes in there, building out some cool routes on this wall and getting some cool height as well. So I thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this real world climbing community, and we'll see you in future videos. Now that the climbing wall is pretty much done, we are going to use this glue gun to glue the LEDs into the holes.